What kind of research did you do for the project?
A lot of it was brand research. So I didn't look up any like papers on it, or I didn't really go through a lot of different authentic like professional sources, so much as I looked at trends on the internet by looking at popular brands and what was marked or what came up when I searched the most popular or most expensive brands online, and I looked at what people spend the most money on and what's trending. I also we have a materialism lecture on our university page, which we read through several times and looked at that. A lot of what we did came from that, and of course, just from a lot of it was from movies as well, because there's so much popular culture in movies, and a lot of this, there's a lot of movies about this sort of culture. So we looked at a lot of movies like that. So yeah, it's kind of where most of it came
The
from.
majority of the research right there.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to do materialism?
That's an interesting question. We originally didn't. We chose to do. We were looking at subcultures, and we were looking at
Aesthetics as well.
Aesthetics. We were both really leaning towards aesthetics because aesthetics influences my discipline, which is games, and also influences Ansel's discipline,
which is animation. So it has a big part in what we both do. But yeah, ended up kind of. I think we were browsing through the different lectures.
Yeah.
And we saw materialism, and we were like,
well, let's
have a look at it, and it pretty much said exactly like on dot points what we were already talking about with a lot of the other stuff. So
we didn't really have anything that connected directly from subculture to aesthetics, but the ideas that we were kind of already exploring all fit into materialism. And then when we were reading through the lecture, we thought about a lot of influences we've had, like, I guess we'll get into that more, but just things, a lot of things resonated with us that we were like, oh yeah, that relates to us, like I can see how that affects society at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of thing. I hope that answers it.
So what was the inspiration for this project?
Probably the biggest inspiration I think is Monopoly.
Yeah.
I started the design of the game based on Monopoly.
There was a lot of talk of Monopoly and the similarities that we had with it, so we tried to make changes so that it wasn't too similar to Monopoly, but
it's exploring a different concept. Like Monopoly is
very
about capitalism,
yes.
And we wanted to take it in a different direction.
Yeah.
We wanted to approach it in a similar way, but focus on something different.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of the inspiration. Also, I mean, there's also some of the movies that we saw that were mentioned in the lecture on materialism, and a lot of the material in that lecture just kind of made us think in the right direction. I think particularly the philosophies from movies like Fight Club or The Pursuit of Happiness and The Great Gatsby, which were all three of those mentioned in the lecture that we were talking about. And we talked about them a lot, yeah?
Yeah, so much. Like...
we kind of went off on a tangent talking about the philosophies in them, and we both feel quite strongly about materialism too, so that kind of...
It did give us a lot of motivation to delve deeper into everything we did and to put a bit more meaning behind it rather than just to make a game. So it gave it a bit more meaning to us.
So how has the design of the game changed since its initial conception?
So much.
Completely.
So much. It I I can't remember exactly where it started, but it was a lot bigger.
It was bigger, but it wasn't focused.
It was very confusing at first. So in cutting it down and changing it so much and bringing it to where it is now, it's a much more concise game, and it actually gets across the message that we were going for and the feel. But at first we were having too much of too many different things in there. We were trying to tackle like 3 or 4 different concepts without having a solid core concept in there, and it just became confusing. So cutting it back, I think, was a really good idea.
Yeah, we probably one of the biggest changes was we were trying to explore celebrity within the vein of materialism. So we kind of mixed together 2 major concepts of trying to promote yourself by purchasing and consuming, and becoming famous, and what sort of effect that has on you in society. And we had fame and infamy were both in the game, and we took that out. We just wanted to focus on materialism, so we got rid of the whole celebrity aspect of it, and just really we wanted to make sure that when people played the game, we could give them as much of an experience just of materialism as we could, so that they could feel like they were consuming, they could feel like they were collecting so much stuff without really having a reason to own so much, and then finding that they have too much.
Yeah, and then
but still wanting more.
Yeah, and still wanting more, still needing more, but at the same time realizing that there comes a point in the game where those items are completely useless, and you just have to get rid of them to try and get more items anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so how well do you think the design has communicated the concept that you chose?
For a designer, that's a hard question because the answer is always not enough. I think that it has been successful in some aspects, in a lot of aspects actually. I like the way that the game shows the player the futility of collecting things, because you're always trying to collect more, because there's a time constraint. As you collect things, they become obsolete, and then they no longer benefit you, and so you then need to collect more things and get rid of the things that you have, and so there's that cycle. It also it shows a social class change, because there's different levels of different cards that you can collect, and as you go up in levels, you accelerate in pace as to what you're doing in the game. You can move forward faster, collect things faster, or collect fame faster. And I think that it kind of showed the relationship a little bit between different classes, particularly from the higher classes looking down at the lower classes, but I really don't think it communicated looking up so much. Only looking up to get there, not the relationship between the people that are in the higher classes to the lower classes. Like, there's an antagonism between the higher classes and the lower classes in society, particularly in this sort of culture, or this aspect of culture. Like there's in a lot of cases there's an anger there, where they're annoyed that other people have more than them. They want to be better than them, or the people that are above are like, no, I'm better than you, looking down on them. And I don't think we really communicated that very well.
I think it is lacking in that area for the keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing. It's
talked about that
not quite there. Like when we finally came to the general idea that we had now, we were talking about with keeping up with the Joneses a lot, and I think that's something that we haven't quite communicated as well as we would have liked to, which is unfortunate, because I think it could have brought a lot more to the game if we'd managed to get that in there, but at the same time it still does have that in there to a small extent, just not quite what we would have liked.
It communicated the core idea, which was of trying to collect more, but not the competition enough.
Yeah.
So what sort of things in your game help the players feel like they're experiencing materialism?
As we've said, like with the trying to gain more and more items, to then just lose them again shows the materialism, consumerism of I need it for me, give it to me, but then the wastefulness of society as well, just throwing it away again.
So probably the main mechanic for that, like just talking about the mechanics of the game, how we use that to communicate the idea. As you start off the game at level 1, you start collecting things. The cards have brands; they tell you what they're from. Like if it's from Nike, if it's from Reebok, or if it's from even like a jeans company or a t-shirt company or cars. And then as you go up, you get more expensive brands, and you also get more for what you buy, the higher level you are. And so the idea is that you want to become well known. You're collecting fame, and you earn fame from collecting cards that are capital. Your capital is, it can be anything from a house to a pair of shoes. Especially brand name, big expensive brand names give you lots of capital. Or they give you more fame, like more Gucci fame. Or Armani. Yes. Well-known, expensive brands are a big thing, but the way that we help people not just want to collect things and really experience, I guess, the futility of materialism is that on the board there's places that if a player lands on it, it changes the fashions. And every time a player circles the full board, their fashions change as well. And every time your fashions change, you discard every piece of capital that requires, that has, I guess, an expiration date. Yeah. Obviously not like houses.
Houses are always going to be cool, but your clothing items, shoes, that sort of thing, they go out of fashion.
Even cars.
Cars go out of fashion. Your video games and everything are going to stop being cool when they start to go out of fashion. They're not quite so new anymore. So there's a lot of things like that people have gone and they've gone out to try and get, and then it's completely worthless now. So
10 years later, no one cares.
Yeah.
Even in some cases, 10 weeks later, no one cares. And so we wanted people to have the experience of they're trying to collect and trying to collect and trying to collect, and then all of a sudden everything they've collected doesn't mean anything and they have to start again. Yeah. But they've still got something from it.
They still have the fame.
But they don't have, all that capital doesn't mean anything. Yes. And the other thing that I'm quite proud of, actually, we were really happy about this, is with the fame, we've made the fame look like kind of like a dollar bill, from an American dollar bill. And they're all $1, and we added $5, or we're adding it, but
just for now,
because it's downloadable.
It's downloadable, and I don't think people are going to want to use a whole ream of A4 paper to print off that many $1 bills.
We want people to get so much fame, and it's going to feel like they're collecting money, that they're going to have trouble counting it, and it's just going to be a pain. We want them to feel like they have too much, and it's both feels good that they've collected so much and they're winning, but it's also an annoyance to them. Yeah. Because it's wasteful.
Gets to the point where they've got so much that it's stupid, but they still want to get more because they need to get more to keep up with the Joneses and to try and win.
To be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So what aspects of the game did you particularly like, and why?
There's a lot that I like.
I like the opportunity cards.
The opportunity cards are pretty good.
Yeah.
We
kind of added them to add some flavour to the game, to make it not just...
To give it some flair, because it felt very flat with just trying to get all the materialistic things.
We felt like there needed to be more than just one single focal point.
Yes.
And I wanted to add things like crime. I wanted to add... I haven't actually added enough, I'd like to add more of that. But I wanted to add opportunities for people to affect other players. And so in some of the opportunity cards, for example, if you land on a tile with an opportunity card, you can pay fame to buy a card. And then you can then use that card during your turn. And there's a lot of different opportunities. Some of them just benefit you. Some of them benefit you at the expense of another player. For example, there's an opportunity card that lets you steal a piece of capital from another player.
Yeah.
And some of them prevent you from losing all of your capital when the fashions change. I just think that really added a lot to the game.
It added a almost a player versus player aspect that wasn't really there before. Like, yeah, you were trying to keep up with the Joneses, but it was more in the fact that you wanted to try and land on the right tiles or just get the right cards.
It was kind of removed.
Whereas with the opportunity cards, it actually brought in a whole, I guess, vindictive aspect that you actually find in a materialistic society of
a way for you to affect people.
Yeah, you've got something better than me. Not only am I going to try and catch up to you, but I'm going to try and backstab you in some way so that
I can get ahead.
So that I can get ahead, or so that you start falling backwards.
So if you were to continue working on the game, what aspects of the game do you think you'd change to better communicate the experience of materialism to the players?
Oh, there's a lot.
I think while I'm happy with the idea that we have now, given more time and everything, there's a lot that I think we could add in to give it more of a materialistic feel.
I'd like to add more cards, a lot more cards, especially cards to help highlight the relationship between the social structures.
Yeah.
And more opportunity cards that help you affect other players so that you can get ahead.
Yeah.
Or cards that affect you that then the other players get ahead. Things that are negative that would actually happen. I'd like to add in more crime, because there's quite a lot of that in materialistic society, particularly things like shoplifting or stealing, or but also fraud. I don't have a lot of that in there. I'd like to add a lot more.
I think another thing that would be really nice is the to show the anxiety side of things. That we do have a bit of some cards will give you anxiety, and I think it would be a really good aspect to be able to bring a bit more of that in there and have some negative effects that come about from having too much anxiety, such as having a breakdown, needing to get counselling, that sort of thing, and having that affect your fame, cost fame, that sort of thing. I think would also show the stressful side of things of living in a materialistic society. Of if your TV and some of your goods get stolen, you're going to start feeling pretty stressed about it.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and so I think that would be a really good side that I would like to be able to work on more, as the anxiety side of things as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Is there anything that you feel the game has lost that you intended it to do when you started designing it?
Yes.
It has lost, like you mentioned earlier, we were trying to get the celebrity side of things at first.
Yeah.
And while you're still trying to get fame, it's not really focused on celebrity like we had at first, which I don't think is necessarily too bad a thing in some ways. But I do think it was an interesting facet that if it hadn't caused... I guess this is another thing that we could put in if we had the time, but still having things like infamy and fame and having them affect the outcomes of certain opportunity cards and things like that, I think that was a bit of a loss if we'd been able to work it out properly. I think that could have been really interesting.
Yeah, I think probably also something that I think that I kind of wanted to do that we never really did, like it was in the original vision, was kind of showing the relationship between consumers and companies. So, the more that the lower classes purchase and wear brands, the more popular that brand then becomes, because people like it and people see other people wearing it. They're like, oh, I want to wear that, and you're a walking commercial when you're wearing that brand. And we didn't really show that relationship at all in the end, although we kind of wanted to. We showed it a little bit from the upper classes, like in level 4, you can sponsor brands with some of the cards, and then that affects the lower brand, the lower classes, and it gives you bonuses, but we didn't really show it in the way that I wanted.
Yeah.
So what do you want this game to teach people? What sort of experience do you want the players to take away from playing this game?
That's a
So the experience I want them to have is I want them to see what it's like to focus just on materialism. If they were to strip away everything else and just look at how they consume, and then I want them to experience, in part, the futility of that.
To realise that, to an extent, everyone does it. Even the people that are aware of it, it's very, very hard to get away from in such a consumeristic society. I guess to bring a bit of awareness to that whole situation of that is how everything's marketed now, is to consume and to go through and to get the latest and greatest things. Everyone does it. It's something that's almost impossible to get away from. Whether you're a gamer or whether you're a mum and you're like, oh, this new kitchen appliance is going to help me, and I saw my friend has it and she spends way less time getting this thing done. It's all something that we all do go through. So just to bring a bit of awareness to that, I think would be really cool.
I really wanted people to think about what they consume, really, because it's important what we consume and what we purchase, what makes us, in part that makes us who we are, our likes and our dislikes. And I wanted to really have that something that people were thinking about when they're playing the game. That's why I went through the different brands. And then I wanted people to think about debt and anxiety and waste and all the things that come with focusing on materialism. And I think that, at least in part, we managed to do that, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, definitely. As it stands, I'm happy with what we do have. It could use work, but
I'd like to keep working on it.
Even the best games out there could use work, so
Yeah, I'm happy with it as it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I told you.